It was 6:30 on Christmas Eve when I realized my children had locked me out. Not metaphorically, actually locked me out. I stood on the front porch of the house where I'd lived for 43 years, the house Robert's family had owned for 60, with wrapped gifts in my arms and light snow starting to fall. The Christmas lights were on, the wreath hung on the door, just like always. I could hear voices inside, laughter, the clink of glasses. My key didn't work. I tried it once, twice, 3 times, jiggled the handle, checked to make sure it was the right key, the brass one on the ring with Robert's old hospital ID tag. It was, but the lock had been changed. I stood there in the cold trying to understand. The porch light was off, but I could see the glow from the living room windows. The Christmas tree we'd always put in the corner by the fireplace. Movement, shadows. My family was inside, celebrating without me. I knocked, waited, knocked again, harder. The voices stopped. Footsteps. Jennifer's face appeared in the window beside the door. My daughter, 42 years old, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Guilt, maybe pity. She met my eyes for just a moment. Then the curtain fell back into place. I heard David's voice from inside, my son, loud enough that I could make out the words through the door. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore. You're not safe. The house needs to be sold. We've talked about this." But we hadn't. We hadn't talked about any of it. I knocked again. "David, Jennifer, it's me, it's Mom. Let me in." Silence. Then Jennifer's voice, quieter. "David, she's still out there. We can't just..." "She'll understand eventually. It's for her own good." The cold was seeping through my coat now. The snow was accumulating on the packages in my arms, gifts I'd wrapped 2 days ago in the apartment above Carol's garage, where I'd been staying while they deep cleaned the house for Christmas. That's what Jennifer had told me. Deep cleaning. I thought it was sweet, thoughtful even. I'd been so stupid. I looked at the windows one more time, at the house Robert had grown up in, the house where we'd raised our children, where I'd taught David to ride a bike in the driveway and helped Jennifer with her college essays at the kitchen table, where Robert and I had spent every Christmas for 4 decades, hanging stockings and making our terrible amateur attempts at gingerbread houses. They'd locked me out of my own home on Christmas Eve. I turned around, walked down the porch steps, got in my car, the old sedan I'd been driving for 12 years because I couldn't justify buying a new one when this one ran fine. The packages sat in the passenger seat. A cashmere scarf for David, a photo album for Jennifer filled with pictures of the kids when they were little. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at the house one more time. The warm light, the wreath, the family inside that had decided I didn't belong there anymore. If only they knew what their father had left for me, what I was about to do. The letter Robert had hidden for 30 years was about to change everything. I drove to Carol's house, the only place I had left to go. Carol Brennan had been my neighbor for 15 years. She lived next door, or what used to be next door before my children decided the house wasn't mine anymore. She was a widow, too. Her husband, Jim, had died 8 years ago from a heart attack while mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning. We'd bonded over the strange, specific loneliness of losing someone after decades of marriage. The empty chair at dinner, the habit of saying we when there was only I left. She opened the door before I even knocked. She must have seen my headlights. Margaret. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "What happened?" I told her. Standing in her kitchen while she made tea, I didn't drink. The locked door, the changed locks. David's voice through the wood, Jennifer's guilty face in the window. "They locked you out," Carol said quietly. "On Christmas Eve. They locked me out." She squeezed my hand across the table. Didn't say anything for a moment. Carol understood things without needing them explained. That's what I'd always loved about her. "You'll stay here tonight," she finally said, "as long as you need." I should probably explain how I got here, how a 68-year-old retired teacher ended up locked out of her own home by her own children on Christmas Eve. My name is Margaret Harrison. I was born Margaret Cooper in 1957 in Hartford, Connecticut. I met Robert Harrison when I was 23, fresh out of college with a teaching degree. He was 25, working as an accountant at a firm downtown. We married a year later, bought this house, his family's house where he'd grown up, when his parents moved to Florida. That was 1983, 43 years ago. We had 2 children. David came first in 1980, Jennifer in 1983. I taught elementary school for 35 years while Robert worked his way up to partner at the firm. We had a good life, a normal life, middle-class suburban Connecticut, soccer games and piano recitals and family vacations to Cape Cod every summer. Robert died 5 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. He was only 65. We were supposed to have more time. After he died, I kept teaching for 2 more years. Retired at 65. The house felt too big and too empty, but I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. Every room had Robert in it. His coffee mug still in the cabinet, his study still exactly how he'd left it. Papers on the desk and books on the shelves. I couldn't bring myself to change it. David and Jennifer had seemed supportive after their father died, checking in, calling regularly. David lived an hour away with his wife and 2 kids I barely saw anymore. Jennifer was divorced, living 20 minutes away with her 2 teenagers, my granddaughter Emma and grandson Jake. I'd helped them over the years. Of course I had. That's what mothers do. Over. 35 years of motherhood, I gave them everything I could. $85,000 for David's tech startup, the one that was supposed to make us all proud. It failed within 2 years. $45,000 for Jennifer's wedding to a man who left her 3 years ago and barely paid child support. $30,000 co-signed on Jennifer's mortgage down payment when her credit wasn't quite there yet. $15,000 for David's legal fees after the DUI he swore was a mistake. Couldn't let him lose his license. Smaller things too. $7,000 for Jennifer's car when hers died. $12,000 for David's office equipment. All told, $175,000. I never asked for it back. I thought I was building their futures. I thought that's what mothers did. I never told Robert about all of it. He'd have worried. He'd have said I was being taken advantage of. Maybe he would have been right. Tom Wilson was Robert's financial advisor. He'd managed our accounts for 20 years. After Robert died, Tom kept managing mine. He was good at his job, patient. He explained things in ways I could understand. Retirement accounts, investment portfolios, all the financial language that made my head spin. He'd noticed some irregularities in my accounts recently. He'd mentioned last month. Unusual withdrawals. But I'd brushed it off. David had needed help with some business expenses, I'd explained. Tom had looked at me with an expression I didn't want to interpret. Concern, maybe, or pity. I should have seen the signs. 6 months ago, David had asked about the house's value. Just curious, he'd said. The real estate market was hot. Did I ever think about downsizing? At my age, wouldn't a condo be easier? Last Thanksgiving, Jennifer had brought up my memory. Had I noticed I was forgetting things? Repeating myself? She'd read an article about early dementia. Maybe I should see a doctor. Maybe we should talk about updating my estate plan. I dismissed it all. I was 68, not 98. I forgot where I put my reading glasses sometimes, like everyone. I repeated stories occasionally because Jennifer never seemed to be listening the first time. There was nothing wrong with my memory, but they'd been building a case, creating a narrative, incompetent, declining, unable to live alone. I just hadn't wanted to see it. That was my flaw, I suppose. I was conflict avoidant, always had been. My mother used to say I'd rather swallow broken glass than start an argument. And I trusted my children. I'd raised them to be good people, kind people. The thought that they might hurt me on purpose, it was easier to ignore the warning signs than to face what they might mean. I thought about David. His business had failed 3 years ago. The tech startup he'd been so proud of collapsed when his partner embezzled funds. It wasn't entirely David's fault, but he'd been left with $120,000 in debt. His drinking had gotten worse after that. I'd noticed the smell of whiskey on his breath at Sunday dinners, the way his hands shook sometimes, but he was ashamed to ask me for help directly. I understood that. Pride was a terrible thing. And Jennifer. Her divorce had been brutal. Her ex-husband was a lawyer who'd made sure she got the minimum. She'd been left with $75,000 in debt and 2 kids to raise alone. She worked in marketing, made decent money, but it was never quite enough. The child support checks came sporadically or not at all. She was drowning financially. I knew that. I'd wanted to help. I'd given them money because I loved them, because they were my children and they were struggling. But somewhere along the way, helping had become enabling. Gifts had become expectations. And now, apparently, they'd decided the house, Robert's house, my house, was the solution to their problems. I sat at Carol's kitchen table, staring at my cold tea. Outside, snow was falling heavier now, covering the driveway, covering the street, covering everything in soft white that made the world look clean and new, even when it wasn't. Carol sat across from me, not saying anything, just being there. That was enough. My phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "Mom, please understand. This is for your own good. We love you." I turned the phone face down on the table. "What are you going to do?" Carol asked. I thought about Robert, about the house, about 43 years of marriage and 35 years of teaching and 68 years of trying to be a good person, a good mother, a good wife. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm not signing anything, and I'm not moving into assisted living." "Good," Carol said. She stood up, cleared the teacups. "You can stay in the guest room, and tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." I nodded, went upstairs. The guest room was small but comfortable. Clean sheets that smelled like lavender, a quilt Carol's mother had made years ago. I sat on the bed and thought about Robert's study, the desk where he'd worked for decades, the locked drawer I'd never been able to open because I'd never found the key, the drawer he'd always said contained just paperwork, nothing important. I'd ignored that too, trusted him, never pushed. But standing outside that locked door tonight, hearing my children decide my fate without me, something had shifted. I thought about that drawer, about what Robert might have left there, about the secrets we keep to protect the people we love. If only I'd looked sooner, if only I'd asked questions, if only I'd been less trusting and more careful. But maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still something I could do. I lay down on Carol's guest bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd go back to that house. I'd find a way in, and I'd open that drawer, because if my children thought I was going to disappear quietly, they didn't know me at all. Christmas morning, I called David. He answered on the 4th ring. I could hear voices in the background, his wife Lisa, the kids. A normal Christmas morning at his house, while I sat in Carol's guest room with yesterday's clothes still on. "Mom." His voice was careful, guarded. "David, I need to talk to you. I know you're upset, but this is really for the best. You're not safe living alone. Last month you left the stove on." "I didn't leave the stove on." "Mom, you did. Jennifer found it when she stopped by." That wasn't true. I hadn't cooked in weeks. Jennifer had been discouraging me from using the kitchen, saying she'd bring meals over, saying I should rest, saying cooking was too much work at my age. They'd been building a narrative, little by little. "I want my key back," I said quietly. "Mom, we can talk about this after the holidays, when you've had time to calm down. We have your best interests at heart. You know that, right?" I hung up. Carol brought coffee, sat on the edge of the bed. What did he say? He said I left the stove on, that I'm not safe. "Did you leave the stove on?" "No." Carol nodded, didn't need more explanation. She'd known me 15 years. She knew I was careful, methodical. I'd been a teacher for 3 decades. You didn't forget to turn off stoves when you'd supervised 25 children every day for 35 years. "There's something I remembered," I said. "The spare key." Carol looked at me. "The one Robert kept in our garage?" "Yes." Years ago, Robert had hidden a spare key in Carol and Jim's garage. Just in case, he'd said. Emergencies. Fire. Lost keys. He'd shown Carol where it was, behind a loose brick in the back wall, wrapped in plastic. "You want to go to the house?" Carol said. "The children are at David's. They're having Christmas there. The house will be empty." Carol studied me for a moment, then she stood up. "I'll get my coat." 20 minutes later, we pulled up to my house. The driveway was empty. No cars. The Christmas lights were still on from last night, looking garish now in the daylight. The wreath still hung on the door. Carol led me to her garage, found the loose brick on the back wall, pulled out the plastic-wrapped key. It was still there. After all these years, Robert had always been careful, always prepared, always protecting me, even from things I didn't know I'd need protection from. We crossed the yard between our houses. The snow from last night covered everything, no footprints, but ours. I put the key in the door. It turned. The house was quiet, too quiet. I'd lived here 43 years. I knew every sound it made, the way the furnace kicked on with a gentle rattle, the creak of the third stair, the way the kitchen pipes hummed when the heat was running. But now it felt foreign, like I was trespassing in someone else's house. "What are we looking for?" Carol whispered. "I don't know, evidence, proof, something." We started with the obvious places. The kitchen, table, nothing. The living room desk, nothing but old bills and grocery receipts. Then I thought about Robert's study, the room I'd barely touched since he died, the room the children had said they'd cleaned out for me last month. The door was closed. I opened it. Robert's desk was still there, his chair, his bookshelves, but something was different. The papers were gone, the personal items, the little clock he'd kept by his computer, the photo of us on our honeymoon. Someone had cleaned it out, not me. I'd left it exactly as it was. I opened desk drawers. The top ones were empty. The bottom ones had been reorganized, files sorted, labels added that I didn't recognize. Then I saw it, the locked drawer, the one I'd never been able to open. It wasn't locked anymore. My hands were shaking as I pulled it open. Inside was a stack of documents. I pulled them out, spread them on the desk. Carol moved beside me. "Margaret, what is all this?" The first document was an estate plan. My name at the top, Margaret Harrison. But I'd never seen it before. And at the bottom, where my signature should have been, nothing. Blank. "I didn't sign this," I said. "I've never seen this." The second document was a brochure, Sunset Village Assisted Living Community. Someone had circled the pricing, $185,000 per year for a one-bedroom unit. There were notes in the margin in David's handwriting. Mom's account, enough for 3 years, then sell house. The third document made my stomach turn, a realtor's market assessment. For this house, this property, $850,000, the estimate said, dated 3 weeks ago. "They were going to sell the house," Carol said quietly, "before you even knew." I kept going through the papers, more documents, medical power of attorney forms, unsigned, financial power of attorney, unsigned, all prepared, all ready for my signature, all designed to give David and Jennifer control over everything. At the bottom of the stack was a folder labeled Financial Records. I opened it. Bank statements, my accounts, with highlighted sections showing withdrawals over the past 2 years, large amounts, $23,000 total, all authorized by someone named David Harrison, power of attorney. But I'd never given David power of attorney. "Margaret," Carol said. Her voice was tight. "This doesn't look right." "No," I said. "It doesn't." My phone rang. I jumped. It was Jennifer. Carol looked at me. "Don't answer it." I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text came through. "Mom, where are you? We need to talk. Please call me back." "They know you're here," Carol said. "How could they—" Then I remembered. The security system. Robert had installed it 5 years ago. Cameras on the front door and back door. motion sensors. I'd forgotten about them. I barely used the app. But David had access. He'd set it up for me after Robert died. He'd insisted. For my safety, he'd said. "We need to go," Carol said. "Wait." I grabbed my phone. Started taking pictures of everything. The unsigned estate plan, the assisted living brochure with David's notes, the realtor's assessment, the bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals, every document, every page. "Margaret, just one more minute." I photographed everything. Then I put the documents back in the drawer, tried to arrange them exactly how I'd found them. Closed the drawer, stepped back. The house was still quiet, but I could feel time running out. We left through the back door, locked it behind us, ran across the yard to Carol's house. Inside, Carol locked her door, drew the curtains. We stood in her kitchen, both breathing hard. "What are we going to do?" Carol asked. I looked at my phone, at the photos I'd just taken, evidence, proof, documentation of what they'd been planning, what they'd been doing to my accounts without my knowledge. "I need a lawyer," I said. Carol reached for her phone. "My daughter's friend is an attorney. Elder law. Let me see if she can help." I sat down at Carol's kitchen table. My hands were still shaking, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something else. Anger, maybe. Or clarity. My children had locked me out of my house. They'd planned to put me in assisted living. They'd prepared documents to take control of my finances. They'd already taken $23,000 from my accounts, somehow without my permission. And they'd thought I wouldn't find out, wouldn't fight back, would just accept it because I was their mother, and I loved them, and I'd always given them what they wanted before. But they'd forgotten something. I wasn't just their mother. I was a woman who'd lived 68 years, who'd taught hundreds of children, who'd survived losing the love of her life and kept going, who'd built a life and a home and a career without anyone's help. And I wasn't going to disappear quietly just because it was more convenient for them. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jennifer. "Mom, please, we love you. We're worried about you. Call us." I turned the phone face down on the table. "What did your daughter's friend say?" I asked Carol. "She can see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Her office is downtown." "Okay." I took a breath. "Okay, tomorrow." I thought about the locked drawer, about the documents inside, about Robert's study that they'd cleaned out without asking me, and I thought about something else. The drawer had been locked when Robert was alive. He'd always said it was just paperwork, nothing important, but he'd kept it locked for a reason. What if there was something else in that study? Something I'd missed? Something Robert had left for me that I hadn't found yet? Tomorrow I'd see the lawyer, but tonight I'd look through those photos again, every document, every page, every detail. Because if my children thought this was over, they were wrong. This was just the beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in Carol's guest room, scrolling through the photos on my phone. The unsigned estate plan, the assisted living brochure, the bank statements showing $23,000 withdrawn over 2 years. But something bothered me. The locked drawer. It had been locked for 5 years, locked when Robert was alive, locked after he died. I'd never found the key, never tried very hard to find it if I'm being honest. Robert said it was just paperwork. I'd believed him. But today it had been unlocked, empty except for those documents. David and Jennifer's documents. Where was Robert's paperwork? What had been in that drawer before? I got out of bed, went downstairs. Carol was still awake, reading in the living room. "Can't sleep," she asked. "I need to go back to the house." Carol put down her book. "Margaret, it's midnight." "I know, but there's something I missed. The locked drawer. It was Robert's. He kept it locked for a reason, but today it was open, with their documents inside, which means they found the key, and they removed whatever Robert had in there. Or they broke the lock. Maybe." I sat down across from her. Robert was careful. He hid the spare house key in your garage. He kept important papers in a locked drawer. What if he hid something else, something they didn't find? Carol was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up. Let me get my coat. We drove to the house. No lights on, no cars. The neighborhood was silent except for the sound of our footsteps in the snow. Inside, the house was dark, cold. They'd turned down the heat, trying to save money probably, already acting like the house was theirs to manage. I led Carol to Robert's study, turned on the desk lamp. The warm light made the room feel almost normal, almost like Robert might walk in any moment with his reading glasses and a cup of tea. Where do we start? Carol whispered. I thought about Robert, about how his mind worked. He was methodical, organized, a place for everything and everything in its place. If he'd hidden something, it would be somewhere logical, somewhere only I would think to look. I started with the bookshelves, pulled out books, checked behind them. Nothing. Checked the desk drawers again, the file cabinet, the closet, nothing. I sat in Robert's chair, frustrated, tired. Carol was looking at the Christmas decorations we'd left up in the study, a small tree on the side table, ornaments Robert had collected over the years, his favorites. Margaret, Carol said quietly, remember what you said about Robert hiding things in plain sight? I looked at the tree, at the ornaments. One ornament stood out, a wooden box, small, hand-carved. Robert had bought it on our trip to Vermont 20 years ago. I'd always thought it was just decorative, a little box that didn't open. But what if it did? I picked it up, examined it. There was a seam, almost invisible. I pressed on it. Nothing. Tried twisting it. Nothing. Then I noticed a small indentation on the bottom, a keyhole, tiny, almost too small to see. Carol, the key, from the garage. Do you still have it? She pulled it from her pocket, the brass key. But it was too big for this lock. I looked around the study. Where would Robert keep a tiny key? Where would he hide it where only I would know? Then I saw it. The wedding photo on the desk, the one in the silver frame. Our wedding day. June 15th, 1979. 46 years ago. I picked up the frame, turned it over. The back panel had a small catch. I opened it. Behind our photo was another photo. Older, faded, and taped to the back of it, a tiny brass key. My hands were shaking as I peeled away the tape. The key was smaller than my pinky fingernail. I brought it to the ornament box, slid it into the keyhole. It turned. The box opened. Inside was a folded piece of paper, old, yellowed, careful cursive handwriting in blue ink, Robert's handwriting. I unfolded it, sat down in his chair. Carol moved beside me, reading over my shoulder. The letter was dated December 20th, 1994, 30 years ago. My dearest Margaret, it began. My eyes filled with tears. I blinked them away, kept reading. If you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I pray you never need to find this letter, but I can't leave things to chance. Not when it comes to protecting you. I need to tell you something I've never said out loud, something I've watched for years and hoped I was wrong about. But a father knows his children. And I know David. I've watched him grow into a man I don't fully trust. His sense of entitlement worries me. The way he asks for money without offering to pay it back. The way he justifies his failures as someone else's fault. The way he looks at this house, our house, your house, like it's something he's owed. Jennifer follows his lead. She always has. She's softer, kinder maybe. But she doesn't stand up to him, and when David wants something, she goes along. I'm writing this because I need you to know. The house is yours, not theirs. Not ever theirs until you're gone, and choose to leave it to them. I've made sure of it legally. The deed is in your name. My will is explicit. This house stays with you for as long as you live. No exceptions. No matter what they say. No matter what papers they try to make you sign. I've put protections in place. The deed is filed with attorney Richard Morrison downtown. My will is with him too. If anyone tries to challenge your ownership, he has instructions to defend it. I'm also leaving documentation of the money I've given them over the years. Not gifts, Margaret, loans, with their signatures acknowledging they'll be repaid. I kept those records. They're in the safe deposit box at First National, box 317. The key is with Richard Morrison. I made sure of it. Don't let them bully you. You're stronger than they know, stronger than you know. You've lived through things that would break most people. You raised 2 children mostly on your own while I traveled for work. You built a career. You kept this house running. You are not fragile. You are not helpless. And you are not their resource to exploit. If you're reading this, it means they've done something, pushed too hard, asked for too much, maybe tried to take this house from you. Don't let them. This house is your security, your home, your independence. Don't sign it away. Don't trust their promises. Don't believe them when they say it's for your own good. I love you, Margaret. I've loved you since the day I met you at that terrible office party in 1978, when you laughed at my jokes, even though they weren't funny. I've loved you through 43 years of marriage, through good times and hard times and everything in between, and I'm protecting you now the only way I can, by making sure you know the truth about our children, by giving you the tools you need to stand up to them. Don't be afraid. Don't back down. You have every right to this life, this house, this independence. I'm always with you, always protecting you. With all my love, Robert. I sat there holding the letter. My hands had stopped shaking. The tears were falling now, but I didn't wipe them away. Robert had known. 30 years ago. He'd seen what I refused to see, and he'd protected me anyway. Not by confronting David, not by cutting him off, but by building a safety net, by leaving me the tools I'd need when the day finally came. And that day was now. Margaret, Carol said softly. I looked up. She was crying too. He knew, I said. Even then, he knew. I sat there holding his words. 30 years. He'd kept this secret for 30 years. Protecting me from a truth I wasn't ready to face, protecting me from my own children. The letter changed everything. It wasn't just evidence, it was validation, permission. A message from beyond the grave that said, you're not wrong, you're not overreacting. This is real, and you have the right to fight back. I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the ornament box, closed it. What now? Carol asked. Now I call Tom, and then tomorrow I'm seeing that attorney, and I'm bringing this letter with me. I pulled out my phone. It was almost 1 a.m, but I didn't care. I opened my contacts, found Tom Wilson's number, sent him a text. Tom, it's Margaret Harrison. I need your help. Can you review my accounts first thing tomorrow? I think there's been fraud. Call me when you see this. Then I took a photo of Robert's letter, just in case. Evidence, documentation, proof. Carol drove us back to her house. I carried the ornament box with me. Robert's letter safe inside. In Carol's kitchen, she made tea. Set the casserole she'd made earlier in front of me. Tuna casserole, her specialty, still in the Pyrex dish with her neat handwriting on the tape label. I ate without tasting it. My mind was somewhere else. Planning, strategizing. Tom called at 7:30 the next morning. I was already awake, already dressed, sitting at Carol's kitchen table with Robert's letter in front of me. Margaret, I got your message. What's going on? I told him everything. The locked door on Christmas Eve, the documents I'd found in Robert's study, the unsigned estate plan, the assisted living brochure with David's notes, the bank statements showing $23,000 in withdrawals. There was a long silence on the other end. Margaret, Tom said finally, his voice tight. I need you to come to my office this morning before your attorney appointment. What is it? I need to show you something I've been concerned about but didn't have enough evidence to act on, until now. An hour later, I sat in Tom's office downtown. He had 3 computer monitors on his desk, spreadsheets open on all of them, numbers everywhere. "I've been managing your accounts since Robert died," Tom said, "and I've noticed irregularities, small at first, then larger. I mentioned it to you a few months ago, but you said David was helping with some business expenses." "I thought he was." "He wasn't." Tom clicked through screens. "These are unauthorized withdrawals, $23,417 over the past 2 years. Small amounts at first, $300 here, $500 there, then larger, $2,000, $3,000, all coded as transfers to a checking account, but not yours." "David's?" "I believe so, but there's more." Tom pulled up another document. "This is a power of attorney form, filed with your bank 4 months ago. It gives David Harrison full authority over your accounts." I stared at the signature at the bottom. My signature. Margaret Harrison. "I didn't sign that." "I know," Tom said quietly, "because I have your actual signature on file from when you updated your beneficiaries after Robert died, and these don't match." He pulled up 2 signatures side by side. Mine, real, slightly slanted, the M in Margaret with a distinctive loop, and the forged one, too straight, the M different, the overall shape wrong. "He forged my signature," I said. "Yes, which is fraud, and with $23,000 taken from your accounts using that forged power of attorney. This is felony-level financial exploitation." I sat back in the chair. My son had forged my signature, stolen $23,000, and planned to take more, planned to take the house. "What do I do?" I asked. "You document everything, you report it, and you protect yourself legally." Tom handed me a folder. "I've printed all the records, every withdrawal, the forged power of attorney, the comparison signatures. Take this to your attorney meeting this morning. She'll know what to do." At 9 a.m., I sat in attorney Susan Chen's office. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, wearing a sharp blazer, dark hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. Her office was organized, color-coded tabs on everything, whiteboard with notes in neat handwriting. Carol sat beside me. Moral support. I spread everything on Susan's desk, the photos of the documents from Robert's study, Tom's financial records, the forged power of attorney, the signature comparison, and Robert's letter. Susan read it all, took her time, made notes on a legal pad. When she finished, she looked up at me. "Mrs. Harrison, your husband was right. These are serious matters. Financial exploitation, forged documents, fraud, and attempted elder abuse. What can I do? Fight back." Susan pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm filing an emergency injunction to freeze any attempt to sell the property or change your living situation. Second, I'm reporting the forged power of attorney to the bank and to law enforcement. Third, we're demanding full restitution of the $23,000 plus interest. And fourth, we're putting your children on notice that any further attempts to manipulate you or your assets will result in legal action." She looked at me directly. "But I need to know. Are you sure you want to do this? This will damage your relationship with your children, possibly permanently." I thought about Christmas Eve, about the locked door, about David's voice saying, "She'll understand eventually," about Jennifer's guilty face in the window. I thought about Robert's letter, his protection, his love. "I'm sure," I said. Susan nodded, picked up her phone, started making calls. I sat there with Carol beside me and Robert's letter in my hands. My children had locked me out. They'd forged my signature. They'd stolen $23,000. They'd planned to sell my house and put me in assisted living so they could solve their financial problems. But they'd forgotten one thing. Robert had protected me. 30 years ago, he'd seen this coming, and he'd given me everything I needed to fight back. The letter wasn't just evidence. It was permission. It was validation. It was a voice from the past saying, "You're right. Don't back down. You're stronger than they know." And he was right. I was stronger than they knew, stronger than I knew. 2 weeks after Christmas, I sat in Attorney Susan's office again. This time, I wasn't just gathering information. I was making decisions. Susan had filed the injunction. My property was protected. No one could sell it or force me into assisted living without a court order. The forged power of attorney had been revoked. The bank had frozen David's access to my accounts. Tom had helped me set up new safeguards, new passwords, new account numbers, everything secured. The next step, Susan said, is confrontation. We need to meet with them, with their attorney if they hire one. Put everything on the table, the letter, the financial records, the forged documents. Give them a chance to respond. And if they don't, then we pursue criminal charges for fraud, civil action for restitution, and we make sure they never have access to your finances or property again. I thought about that. Criminal charges. Against my own son, my own daughter. But they'd forged my signature, stolen $23,000, locked me out of my home on Christmas Eve, planned to sell the house and put me in assisted living without my consent. What they'd done was criminal. The question was whether I was strong enough to follow through. There's something else, Susan said. She pulled out a folder. Your husband's letter mentioned a safe deposit box. Box 317 at First National, with loan documents showing money your children borrowed. I contacted attorney Richard Morrison. He's retired now, but he confirmed the box exists, and he has the key. What's in it? According to Robert's instructions, documentation of every loan he made to David and Jennifer, with their signatures acknowledging they'd repay it. Amounts, dates, terms. If we can prove those were loans, not gifts, you may be entitled to full repayment. More money, more evidence, more proof of what my children had done. How much? I asked. Susan checked her notes. According to Morrison's records, approximately $112,000 in documented loans over 20 years. With interest, that could be close to $150,000. I sat back. $150,000, on top of the $23,000 they'd stolen, plus whatever they'd planned to get from selling the house. They'd seen me as a bank, a resource, something to drain until there was nothing left. Mrs. Harrison, Susan said gently, I need to know you're ready for this, because once we start this process, there's no going back. Your relationship with your children will change, maybe permanently. I thought about Robert, about the letter he'd written 30 years ago, about how he'd seen this coming even then. I thought about David, 5 years old, learning to ride a bike in the driveway, me running behind him, holding the seat, letting go when he was ready, him looking back at me with that huge smile when he realized he was doing it alone. Where had that little boy gone? I thought about Jennifer, 8 years old, coming home from school crying because the other girls had been mean. Me holding her, braiding her hair, telling her she was stronger than she knew. Her falling asleep on my lap while I read to her. Where had that little girl gone? They were still my children. I still loved them, but they'd become people I didn't recognize. People who saw their mother as an obstacle, a problem to solve, an inconvenience. I'm ready, I said. After the meeting, I drove back to Carol's house, but I didn't go inside. I drove to my house instead. The house I'd lived in for 43 years, the house Robert's family had owned for 60. I used the spare key, let myself in. The house was still cold, still empty, but this time I wasn't sneaking in. I wasn't afraid of being caught. This was my house, legally, officially, protected by court order. I walked through the rooms, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents every year, the kitchen where I'd made thousands of dinners, the bedroom where Robert and I had slept side by side for decades, and Robert's study. I stood in the doorway, looked at his desk, his chair, his bookshelves, the Christmas ornament box where I'd found his letter. For 5 years, I'd left this room exactly as it was, a shrine, a memorial, afraid to change anything because changing it would mean accepting he was really gone. But Robert wasn't in this room. He wasn't in the furniture or the books or the desk. He was in the letter he'd left me, in the protection he'd built, in the love that had lasted beyond his death, and he'd left this room for me, not as a shrine, as a tool, a reminder, a place to find strength when I needed it. I walked to the desk, sat in his chair. For the first time since he died, I sat in Robert's chair. It was surprisingly comfortable. The leather worn in the right places, the height adjusted to fit someone taller than me, but not by much. I could see why he'd spent so many hours here, working, reading, writing letters that would protect me 30 years later. I thought about that letter, about what he'd written. You're stronger than they know, stronger than you know. For 68 years, I'd thought of myself in terms of other people. Someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's teacher. I'd built my identity around caring for others, supporting them, helping them, sometimes at my own expense. That was my flaw. Not conflict avoidance exactly, but conflict avoidance in service of keeping peace, of maintaining relationships, of being the good mother, the good wife, the good person who never caused problems. But Robert had seen something different. He'd seen strength I didn't know I had, and he'd given me permission 30 years in advance to use it. I opened the desk drawer, took out the Christmas ornament box, opened it, read his letter again. Don't let them bully you, he'd written. You've lived through things that would break most people. You raised 2 children, mostly on your own while I traveled for work. You built a career. You kept this house running. You are not fragile. You are not helpless. He was right. I'd survived Robert's death, the sudden loss of the person I'd built my life around, and I'd kept going, kept teaching, kept living, kept the house, kept myself together even when everything felt like it was falling apart. I'd survived my children's betrayal, the locked door, the stolen money, the forged documents, the plan to take everything from me, and I was still here, still standing, still fighting. My conflict avoidance wasn't weakness, it was strategy. I'd spent years watching, observing, gathering information without my children even knowing. I'd noticed the red flags. I just hadn't acted on them yet. But now I was acting. Now I had evidence. Now I had attorneys and financial advisors and a letter from beyond the grave telling me I was right. Now I had power. The transformation happened quietly. No dramatic moment, no sudden revelation. Just a slow, steady realization sitting in Robert's chair in the late afternoon light. I wasn't a victim. I never had been. I'd been patient, strategic, gathering information, and now I was ready to use it. I pulled out my phone, called Susan. Susan, it's Margaret. I'm ready to set up the meeting with David and Jennifer as soon as possible. Are you sure? I'm sure. And I want to open the safe deposit box first. I want all the evidence before we sit down with them. I'll arrange it. We can go to the bank tomorrow. Good. I looked around the study, at Robert's books, his desk, his chair that was now my chair. And Susan, thank you for seeing this for what it is, for helping me fight back. That's what I'm here for, Mrs. Harrison. After I hung up, I sat there for a while longer, thinking, planning. There was one more thing I needed to do. I pulled out my phone again, scrolled through my contacts, found a number I hadn't called in months. Emma, my granddaughter, Jennifer's daughter. I'd been blocked from Emma's life for almost 3 years. Jennifer had told her I was sick, in memory care, too fragile to visit. Emma had believed it because why wouldn't she? Her mother wouldn't lie about something like that. But Emma deserved to know the truth, and I deserved to have my granddaughter back in my life. I typed a message through Carol's phone. Emma didn't have my new number. Emma, this is your grandmother. I'm not sick. I'm not in memory care. I've been living in Connecticut the whole time. Your mother lied to you. I'd like to explain everything if you're willing to talk. Love, Grandma. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I stood up, looked around the study one more time. I picked up the wedding photo from the desk. the one in the silver frame, Robert and me on the church steps, June 15th, 1979, young and hopeful and completely unprepared for what life would bring. But we'd made it. 43 years. Through everything. And even now, 5 years after his death, he was still protecting me. I sat in his chair, looking at our wedding photo on the wall. 43 years he protected me, even after he was gone. Now it was my turn to protect what we built. I left the study, locked the house behind me, drove back to Carol's. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway, a text from an unknown number. "Grandma, is this really you? Mom said you were too sick to use a phone. I want to hear your voice. Can you call me? Emma." I sat in the car, called her immediately. "Grandma." Her voice was tentative, unsure. "Hi, sweetheart, it's really me. Mom said you were in a nursing home, that you didn't remember us anymore." "I'm not in a nursing home. I'm living with a friend right now, but I remember everything. I remember your 10th birthday party with the unicorn cake. I remember teaching you to braid hair when you were 7. I remember every field hockey game I came to before your mother stopped inviting me." There was silence. Then, "Why would she lie?" "That's complicated, honey, but I'd like to tell you everything. In person, if you're willing. I miss you." "I miss you too." Her voice cracked. "I thought you forgot about me." "Never. I could never forget about you." We talked for 20 minutes, made plans to meet, coffee shop near her school, Saturday morning, without her mother knowing, at least at first. When I hung up, I sat in Carol's driveway for a moment. The sun was setting. The sky was pink and orange and purple. Beautiful. Everything was changing. My relationship with my children, my understanding of who I was and what I was capable of, my willingness to fight for what was mine. But some things stayed the same. My love for Emma. My memories of the good times with David and Jennifer when they were young. My 43 years with Robert. Those things were mine. No one could take them, not even if they took everything else. I got out of the car, went inside. Carol had dinner waiting. Pot roast, mashed potatoes. Simple, comforting. "How did it go?" Carol asked. "Good," I said. "I'm ready for all of it. The meeting, the confrontation, whatever comes next." Carol smiled, squeezed my hand. "Robert would be proud." "I hope so." That night, lying in Carol's guest bed, I thought about what Susan had asked. Was I ready for my relationship with my children to change permanently? The answer was yes, because the relationship had already changed. They'd changed it when they locked me out, when they forged my signature, when they saw me as something to exploit rather than someone to love. I wasn't destroying the family. They'd already done that. I was just refusing to pretend it hadn't happened. And that, I realized, was what strength looked like. Not fighting, not yelling, not dramatic confrontations, just quiet, steady refusal to be treated as less than I deserved. Robert had seen it in me 30 years ago. And now, finally, I saw it in myself. Susan filed the injunction on a Thursday afternoon in mid-January. By Friday morning, David and Jennifer had been served with the legal notice. My phone started ringing at 8:15 a.m. David. I didn't answer. 3 more calls in the next hour. Then Jennifer. Then David again. Text messages flooded in. From David. "Mom, what are you doing? Why are you involving lawyers? We can work this out as a family." From Jennifer. "Mom, please call me. You're making a huge mistake. We love you. We're trying to protect you." I turned my phone on silent, showed the messages to Carol. "They're panicking," she said. "Good." That afternoon, Susan called. They've hired an attorney, Michael Ross. Commercial litigation mostly, not his usual area, but he's competent. He's requested a meeting, mediation essentially, to try to resolve this without going to court. When? End of February. That gives us 6 weeks to gather everything. Open the safe deposit box, get all the loan documents, build an airtight case. And in the meantime? In the meantime, they're going to try to convince you to drop it. Be prepared for that." She was right. The next day, I met Emma at the coffee shop near her school. She was taller than I remembered. 16 now, almost an adult. She looked like Jennifer at that age. Same dark hair, same brown eyes, but there was something different in her expression. Uncertainty. Hurt. She hugged me tight when she saw me. "Grandma, I can't believe Mom lied. She said you had dementia, that you didn't recognize us anymore." "I know, sweetheart." "Why would she do that?" I'd thought about this, how much to tell her, how much a 16-year-old could understand about her mother's choices. "Your mom is going through some things," I said carefully. "Financial problems, and she and your Uncle David made some decisions that weren't in my best interest. I'm trying to protect myself, legally." "Is that why there are lawyers involved?" "Yes." Emma was quiet for a moment, stirring her hot chocolate. "Jake doesn't know. Mom hasn't told him anything. But I heard her on the phone with Uncle David. She was crying, saying something about the house." "The house is fine. It's legally protected. No one can take it from me." "Good." Emma looked up at me. "I missed you. I kept asking Mom if we could visit you in the nursing home. She said you were too sick, that it would upset you to see us." My heart broke a little. 3 years of Emma's life. Missed field hockey games, missed birthdays, missed ordinary moments that couldn't be replaced. "I missed you too, but we're here now, and I'm not going anywhere." We spent 2 hours at that coffee shop, catching up. Emma told me about school, about her plans for college, about her friends, about her dad who'd remarried and moved to California and barely called anymore. I listened, asked questions, tried to rebuild the relationship Jennifer had destroyed. When we left, Emma hugged me again. "Can we do this every Saturday? I'd love that." "Mom's gonna be mad when she finds out." "Probably, but you're 16, old enough to make your own decisions about who you want in your life." Emma nodded. "I love her, but she shouldn't have lied to me about you." "No, she shouldn't have." The following week, Susan and I went to First National Bank. Attorney Richard Morrison met us there. 78 years old now, officially retired but still sharp, still organized. He had Robert's instructions memorized. The bank manager led us to the vault. Box 317. Morrison had the key. Inside were folders, neatly labeled, organized by year. Robert's handwriting on every tab. David Harrison, business loan, 2008, $25,000. Jennifer Mitchell, wedding loan, 2012, $45,000. David Harrison, legal fees, 2015, $15,000. Jennifer Mitchell, mortgage down payment, 2019, $30,000. And more, dozens of documents, each one with signatures, terms, dates for repayment that had never been met. Susan photographed every page, made notes, added up the totals. 112,000 in documented loans, she confirmed. With interest calculated from the original loan dates, this comes to approximately $148,000 they legally owe you. I looked at the documents, at Robert's careful handwriting, his meticulous record-keeping. He'd protected me even from things I didn't know about. Loans I thought were gifts had been loans all along, and he'd made sure David and Jennifer knew it. "They signed these," I said. "Yes, every single one, acknowledging the amounts, agreeing to terms. Most were supposed to be repaid within 5 years. None of them were." So they lied. Not just recently, for years. They took money knowing they were supposed to pay it back, and they never did. That's correct. I thought about all those times David had said, "Thanks, Mom," after I gave him money. All those times Jennifer had cried about her financial struggles and I'd written another check. They'd been playing me for decades. Tom had been right. Robert had been right. I'd been taken advantage of, not just by circumstance, but deliberately, knowingly. "Mrs. Harrison," Morrison said gently, "your husband loved you very much. He wanted you to have everything you needed to protect yourself. He knew this day might come. He knew 30 years ago, yes, and he spent the rest of his life making sure you'd be ready for it." That week, Jennifer called. Not texted. Called. I answered. Against my better judgment. But maybe part of me still hoped she'd apologize. Explain. Make it make sense. Mom. Her voice was soft, gentle. The voice she used when she wanted something. Can we talk? Just the two of us? Without lawyers? I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just coffee. I want to explain. I want you to understand why we did what we did. I thought about it. Susan had warned me. They'll try to manipulate you. They'll try to make you drop the case. Don't fall for it, but Jennifer was still my daughter. And maybe, somewhere under all the lies and manipulation, there was still the little girl who used to fall asleep on my lap while I read to her. Okay, I said. Coffee tomorrow, 1 hour. We met at the same coffee shop where I'd met Emma. Jennifer arrived first. She looked tired. Older than 42, lines around her eyes I didn't remember seeing before. She hugged me. I let her, but I didn't hug back. Mom, thank you for meeting me. I know things have been difficult. That's one word for it. We sat. She ordered tea, fidgeted with the cup, finally looked up at me. I'm sorry, she said. I really am. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. David said it would be simple, that we'd help you transition to assisted living, that you'd be safer, happier. I was happy, in my own home. I know you were. But David was so sure you couldn't manage alone, and he was so worried about the house, about what would happen if you fell, or forgot the stove, or, I never forgot the stove, Jennifer. You made that up. She looked down. David told me you did. He said he found it on when he stopped by. David was lying. He's been lying about a lot of things, like the $23,000 he stole from my accounts using a forged power of attorney. He said that was a loan, that you approved it. I didn't approve anything. He forged my signature. That's fraud. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the forgery. David handles all the financial stuff. He said you'd given him permission. I believed him. And the assisted living brochures? The unsigned estate plan? The plan to sell my house without telling me? That was David's idea. He said it was the best way to protect your assets, to make sure you were taken care of, or to make sure he could pay off his debts. The tears spilled over. Jennifer wiped them away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have questioned him. I should have talked to you directly, but he was so convincing. And I was drowning, Mom. The divorce, the debt, Jake's therapy bills. I needed help. And when David said we could sell the house and split the proceeds after you were settled somewhere safe, I didn't think about what that meant. I didn't think about you locked out on Christmas Eve. I didn't think about how much this would hurt you. She reached across the table, took my hand. Please, Mom, please forgive me. I'll make this right. I'll tell the lawyers it was all a misunderstanding. We can drop everything. You can have the house. You can keep living there. Just, please don't do this. Please don't destroy our family. I looked at her, at my daughter, crying, begging, playing the victim even now. And I realized she still didn't get it. Jennifer, I said quietly, you destroyed the family when you locked me out on Christmas Eve, when you told Emma I had dementia, when you planned to sell my house without my permission, when you stood by while your brother forged my signature and stole my money. But I didn't know. You knew enough. You knew I didn't want to move. You knew I was happy in my home. And you decided your financial problems were more important than my independence. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's the truth. I stood up, put money on the table for my coffee. The meeting is scheduled for the end of February, with lawyers, with all the evidence. If you want to make this right, you can start by telling the truth. All of it. And by figuring out how you're going to repay $148,000 in loans. $148,000? Your father kept records. Every loan, every amount, every signature. You owe me $148,000, with interest. Jennifer's face went pale. Mom, I don't have that kind of money. Then you'll figure it out. The same way I figured out how to survive after your father died. The same way I'm figuring out how to survive now, after my own children betrayed me. I walked out. In the parking lot, my hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger, from clarity. Jennifer hadn't apologized for what she'd done. She'd apologized for getting caught. She hadn't wanted to make things right. She'd wanted me to drop the case so she wouldn't face consequences. Susan had been right. This was manipulation, just a gentler version. 2 days later, an envelope arrived at Carol's house. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a photo printed on it. My house, with a for sale sign photoshopped onto the front lawn. Below the photo, a typed message. Drop the case or everyone will know what a bitter old woman you've become. Your grandchildren will never speak to you again. Your neighbors will think you're cruel. Your children will make sure everyone knows you're the villain here. Stop this now. I showed it to Susan. That's witness intimidation, she said, and it's stupid. Whoever sent this just gave us more evidence of bad faith. David, I said. Probably. We'll include it in our documentation. Save the envelope. Don't respond. But the letter bothered me. Not because it scared me, because it showed how desperate they were, how far they were willing to go, and it made me wonder, what else were they willing to do? Carol's daughter Melissa called her that week. I overheard the conversation from the guest room. Mom, you need to be careful. If this goes to court, you could be called as a witness. You could get sued if they claim you helped Margaret break into the house. You should stay out of it. Carol's voice was firm. Margaret is my friend. She needed help. I'm not abandoning her now. But Mom, no, I watched my friend get locked out of her home on Christmas Eve. I helped her find evidence that her children were stealing from her. I'm not backing down because I'm scared of lawyers. When Carol came, upstairs later, I thanked her. You don't have to do this, I said. Your daughter's right. You could get caught up in legal problems. Margaret, Carol said, when Jim died, you brought me casseroles every week for 3 months. You sat with me when I couldn't stop crying. You helped me figure out how to file his life insurance. You didn't abandon me when things were hard. I'm not abandoning you now. In early February, Susan sent David and Jennifer a formal document, a settlement proposal. Terms: full repayment of $148,000 in loans, repayment of $23,000 in stolen funds, no contact orders for 6 months while Margaret assessed whether relationships could be rebuilt, and full legal confirmation that the house belonged to Margaret alone, with no claims from her children. David's attorney, Michael Ross, responded within 2 days. Counter-proposal. Margaret keeps the house. David and Jennifer become co-owners for estate planning purposes. They'll pay back $5,000 of the $23,000 as a gesture of good faith. No admission of wrongdoing, no repayment of loans because those were gifts, not loans, regardless of what old documents say. Susan showed me the counter-proposal in her office. They're trying to negotiate. This is their attempt at a compromise. Co-ownership means they can force a sale later. Exactly, it's a trap. They want to seem reasonable while maintaining control. What do? You reject it. We go to mediation as planned, and we bring every document, every signature, every piece of evidence. We make it clear you're not negotiating away your rights. I thought about the letter from David, the photoshopped photo, Jennifer's tears at the coffee shop, the years of manipulation, the locked door on Christmas Eve. Reject it, I said. Susan smiled. Good. I'll send our response. And Mrs. Harrison, we're going to win this. That night, I drove to my house again, stood on the front lawn in the February cold, looked at the home Robert and I had built together, the home his parents had built before us, 60 years of family history. David and Jennifer wanted to turn it into cash, wanted to use it to solve their problems, wanted to erase decades of memories because money mattered more. But this house was more than money. It was proof that I'd built a life, raised a family, survived loss, kept going. And I wasn't giving it up. Not to anyone. Not for any reason. I walked the property. The backyard where David learned to throw a baseball. The garden where Jennifer planted her first flowers. The porch where Robert and I drank coffee every Sunday morning for 40 years. The maple trees he'd planted, still standing. Still growing. I would be like those trees, rooted, strong, still here long after the storms passed. My phone buzzed. Emma. Grandma, are you okay? Mom's been crying all week. She won't tell me what's wrong, but I know it has to do with you. Whatever's happening, I'm on your side. I texted back, I'm okay, sweetheart. See you Saturday. The meeting was scheduled for February 28th. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to stay strong. And I would. Because I had Robert's letter. I had evidence. I had attorneys and financial advisors and a granddaughter who believed me. But most importantly, I had myself. The woman who'd survived 68 years of life. Who'd raised 2 children and buried a husband and kept teaching and kept living and kept going. That woman was stronger than they knew. Stronger than I knew, and in 3 weeks my children were going to find out exactly how strong. February 28th arrived cold and gray. I woke up at 5:30, dressed carefully. A navy blazer Robert had always liked, simple jewelry, hair pulled back. I wanted to look composed, strong, not like someone who needed protecting. Susan picked me up at 8. The mediation was scheduled for 9 at her firm's conference room downtown. Are you ready? She asked as we drove. Yes. They're going to try one last time to make you feel guilty, to make you back down. Don't let them. I won't. We arrived early. The conference room was large, professional, a long table with leather chairs, windows overlooking the city, everything designed to look official, binding. Tom Wilson was already there, sitting at the far end with his laptop and 3 folders of documents. He nodded at me. Carol arrived a few minutes later. She'd written a statement about what she'd witnessed on Christmas Eve. The locksmith, the changed locks, my exclusion. She didn't have to be here, but she came anyway. At 8:50 they arrived. David first in a suit that looked expensive but didn't fit quite right. His attorney, Michael Ross, beside him, mid-50s, gray hair, expensive briefcase. Then Jennifer, wearing a black dress, her eyes red like she'd been crying. David saw me and his jaw tightened. Jennifer looked away. Can we talk? David said. Before we start, just family, 5 minutes. Susan looked at me. I nodded. The attorneys left the room. Tom and Carol stayed, but moved to the corner, giving us space but not leaving me alone with them. David sat across from me, Jennifer beside him. He leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. Mom, this is insane. You're really going to sit here and accuse your own children of stealing from you in front of lawyers? This is going to destroy us. You destroyed us when you locked me out on Christmas Eve. We were trying to help you. You're not safe living alone. You're getting older. We were worried. You forged my signature, David. You took $23,000 from my accounts without permission. That's not worry. That's theft. Jennifer reached across the table. Mom, please, we can fix this. We'll pay back the money. We'll apologize. Just don't do this. Don't make this public. Don't ruin our family. Your father kept records, I said quietly, of every loan he gave you, with your signatures, acknowledging you'd pay it back. $148,000. Did you think I'd never find out? David's face went pale. Those were gifts. Dad kept signed documents, loan agreements with repayment terms. You knew they were loans, you signed the papers, and you never paid back a single dollar. We couldn't. We had emergencies, debts. We were going to pay it back eventually. When? After you sold my house? After you put me in assisted living and split the proceeds?" The room was silent. Jennifer was crying again, but this time I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. "You had choices," I said. "You could have asked me for help, honestly. You could have told me you were struggling. Instead, you lied. You manipulated. You forged documents and stole money and planned to take everything from me." "We're your children," David said, his voice breaking. "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It used to." The attorneys came back at exactly 9 o'clock. Susan at one end of the table, Michael Ross at the other, David and Jennifer on one side, me on the other, with Tom and Carol behind me. The mediator, a woman named Patricia Chen, no relation to Susan, sat at the head of the table with a recorder and a legal pad. "Let's begin," she said. "This is a mediation regarding property rights, financial disputes, and family matters between Margaret Harrison and her children, David Harrison and Jennifer Mitchell. Ms. Chen, you're representing Mrs. Harrison?" "Yes," Susan said. She opened her briefcase, pulled out folders, documents, organized stacks of evidence. "And I'd like to start by presenting the facts of this case." For the next 20 minutes, Susan laid it out. The timeline, the Christmas Eve exclusion, the changed locks, the documents found in Robert's study, unsigned estate plans, assisted living brochures with David's notes, the realtor's assessment, then the financial evidence. Tom's testimony was clear and methodical. "I've been Margaret Harrison's financial advisor since her husband died," Tom said. "Over the past 2 years, I noticed irregularities in her accounts, withdrawals she didn't authorize. When I investigated further, I discovered a power of attorney had been filed with her bank, giving David Harrison full access to her accounts. The problem is, Mrs. Harrison never signed that power of attorney. The signature was forged." Michael Ross leaned forward. "Do you have proof of forgery?" Tom pulled up 2 images on his laptop, projected them on the screen. "This is Mrs. Harrison's actual signature, from documents she signed in my office after her husband's death. Note the distinctive loop on the M in Margaret, the slant, the overall structure. And this is the signature on the power of attorney filed with the bank. The M is different. The slant is different. The overall structure doesn't match. I'm not a handwriting expert, but the differences are clear. We can arrange for a formal handwriting analysis if needed," Susan added, "but the visual comparison speaks for itself." David's attorney made notes, said nothing. "Using that forged power of attorney," Tom continued, $23,417 was withdrawn from Mrs. Harrison's accounts over 2 years. Small amounts at first, then larger. All transferred to accounts Mrs. Harrison didn't control. She never authorized these withdrawals. She didn't know about them until I showed her the records last month. Susan pulled out another folder. "We also have documentation from Robert Harrison's safe deposit box, loan agreements between Robert Harrison and his children, amounts ranging from $15,000 to $45,000, each agreement signed by David or Jennifer, acknowledging the loan terms and agreeing to repayment schedules. Total, $112,000 in principal. With interest calculated from the original loan dates, the amount owed is $148,000. Michael Ross looked at David. "Did you sign loan agreements?" David shifted in his seat. "Those were, Dad said they were just formalities, for tax purposes. He never expected us to actually pay them back." "Did he say that in writing?" Susan asked. "No, but..." "So you have no documentation that these were gifts rather than loans. But we have documentation, with your signature, that they were loans, with terms, with repayment schedules, which you never met." Jennifer was crying openly now. David's jaw was clenched tight. "There's one more piece of evidence," Susan said. She looked at me. "Mrs. Harrison, would you like to present it?" I pulled out the Christmas ornament box, opened it, took out Robert's letter. The paper was yellowed, fragile, but the words were clear. written in blue ink 30 years ago by a man who'd loved me enough to see what I couldn't. "This is a letter from my late husband," I said. My voice was steady, calm. He wrote it on December 20th, 1994, 30 years ago. He hid it in a place only I would think to look, and he left me instructions for what to do if my children ever tried to take advantage of me. I unfolded it, placed it on the table where everyone could see. "My dearest Margaret," I read aloud, "if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I pray you never need to find this letter, but I can't leave things to chance, not when it comes to protecting you." My hands were steady. My voice didn't shake. "I need to tell you something I've never said out loud. I've watched David grow into a man I don't fully trust. His sense of entitlement worries me. The way he asks for money without offering to pay it back. The way he justifies his failures as someone else's fault. The way he looks at this house, our house, your house, like it's something he's owed." I looked up. David's face was white, frozen. "Jennifer follows his lead," I continued reading. "She always has. She's softer, kinder, maybe. But she doesn't stand up to him, and when David wants something, she goes along." Jennifer made a sound, half sob, half gasp. "The house is yours," I read. "Not theirs, not ever theirs until you're gone and choose to leave it to them. I've made sure of it legally. The deed is in your name. My will is explicit. This house stays with you for as long as you live. No exceptions, no matter what they say, no matter what papers they try to make you sign." I looked at my children, really looked at them. "Don't let them bully you," I read. "You're stronger than they know, stronger than you know. You've lived through things that would break most people. You raised 2 children mostly on your own while I traveled for work. You built a career. You kept this house running. You are not fragile. You are not helpless. And you are not their resource to exploit." The room was completely silent. "I love you, Margaret," I finished. "I've loved you since the day I met you, and I'm protecting you now the only way I can, by making sure you know the truth about our children. Don't be afraid. Don't back down. You have every right to this life, this house, this independence. I'm always with you, always protecting you. With all my love, Robert." I folded the letter, placed it back on the table. David stood up suddenly. His chair scraped against the floor. "This is unbelievable. Dad wrote that 30 years ago. He didn't know. He couldn't have known." "He knew," I said quietly. "He knew exactly who you'd become, and he was right." "Fine." David's voice was sharp, angry, all pretense of concern gone. "Fine. Take your house. Keep your money. You'll die alone in that house, you know that? Without family? Without anyone who cares about you. Is that what you want?" "David!" Jennifer grabbed his arm. He shook her off. "No, she wants to do this. Let her. We tried to help her. We tried to take care of her. And this is how she repays us. With lawyers and accusations and—" "You forged my signature," I said. My voice was still calm, still steady. "You stole money from my accounts. You planned to sell my house without my permission. You locked me out on Christmas Eve. You told my granddaughter I had dementia. You lied for years. And now you're angry because I found out?" Jennifer stood up. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. David said we had no choice. He said you couldn't manage on your own. He said it was for your own good. And I believed him. I shouldn't have. But I did, and I'm sorry." She looked at David. "I'm so sorry for all of it." "Jennifer!" David's voice was warning. "No." She turned to the mediator. "I'll sign whatever we need to sign. I'll agree to repay the loans. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I just want my mother back." Michael Ross put a hand on David's shoulder, spoke quietly to him. David sat down, looked at the table, his hands clenched into fists. I looked at my daughter, at the tears on her face, at the genuine regret I could finally see, and I thought maybe, someday, After time and therapy and real change, maybe, but not today. I want my house back, I said, addressing the mediator, addressing everyone. I want the forged power of attorney revoked permanently. I want all access to my accounts removed. I want a formal acknowledgement that the house is mine alone, with no claims from my children. And I want a repayment plan for $148,000 in documented loans, plus $23,000 in stolen funds, $171,000 total. I looked at David, then at Jennifer, and I want you to understand something. Your father protected me because he loved me. I'm protecting myself now because I love me. That's not destroying the family. That's saving myself. The mediation lasted another 2 hours. Terms negotiated, documents signed, repayment schedules established. David would pay back the $23,000 over 2 years through a structured payment plan monitored by the court. The loan repayments would be addressed separately, with David and Jennifer each responsible for their documented amounts, with flexible terms acknowledging their financial situations. The house stayed mine, legally, officially, with court documentation that no one could challenge. David would have no contact with me for at least 6 months. After that, only if I chose to allow it. Jennifer would have supervised contact. Therapy required for both of them before any relationship could be rebuilt. Emma could see me whenever she wanted. That was non-negotiable. When the papers were signed, the mediator stood. This mediation is concluded. All parties are bound by these terms. David left without looking at me. Michael Ross followed him out. Jennifer lingered. Mom, I really am sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I am. And I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, repayment, time, whatever you need. We'll see, I said. She nodded. Left. When the conference room was empty except for Susan, Tom, Carol, and me, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. You did it, Susan said. We did it. Tom closed his laptop. The financial protections are in place. Your accounts are secure. No one can access them without your explicit, written, witnessed permission. Carol hugged me. I'm proud of you. When the mediator read the terms, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired, relieved, and grateful Robert knew, even 30 years ago, that I'd need his protection. We left the building. The afternoon sun was bright, cold but bright. I stood on the sidewalk looking up at the clear February sky. What are you thinking? Carol asked. I'm thinking, I said, that I'm ready to go home. Not to Carol's guest room, home, to my house, the house Robert and I built together, the house that was finally, legally, completely mine. Let's go, Carol said. And we did. The first thing I did was change the locks, again. This time, I was the one who called the locksmith. I was the one who watched him install new deadbolts on the front door and back door. I was the one who kept all 3 keys, one for me, one spare hidden in Carol's garage where Robert had always kept it, and one in my purse, just in case. The house was mine, legally, officially, with court documentation that said so. But it didn't feel real until I stood inside with the new key in my hand and knew no one could lock me out ever again. The second thing I did was secure my finances. Tom helped me close the old accounts and open new ones at a different bank. New account numbers, new passwords, new security questions. Everything David had touched was gone, replaced, protected. The court-monitored repayment plan was in place. David would pay $200 a month for the next 10 years to cover the $23,000 he'd stolen. It wasn't fast, but it was something. And every month a check would arrive as a reminder. What he'd done had consequences. The loan repayments were separate. David owed $62,000 from his various business failures and legal fees. Jennifer owed $50,000 from her wedding and divorce expenses. Flexible terms, acknowledging their financial situations, but documented, official, not gifts, never gifts again. The third thing I did was set boundaries. David was not allowed to contact me for 6 months. After that, only if I chose to allow it. Jennifer could call once a week, supervised visits only. Emma could come over whenever she wanted. Emma came over that first Saturday after the mediation, helped me move back in, brought boxes from Carol's house. We worked side by side, unpacking, organizing, making the house feel like mine again. "I'm proud of you, Grandma," she said as we hung pictures in the living room. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Mom's in therapy," she told me. She said she needs to figure out why she let Uncle David control everything, why she lied to me about you. "That's good. Therapy's good." Emma looked at me. "Do you think you'll ever forgive them?" I thought about that. I don't know. Maybe Jennifer. Someday. After time. After real change. But David... I shook my head. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry he got caught. There's a difference. "Yeah," Emma said quietly. "There is." A week after I moved back in, Tom stopped by with paperwork, updated beneficiary forms, new investment strategies, everything reorganized to protect my assets. "You're in good shape financially," he said, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. "Even after everything, you have enough. The house is paid off. Your retirement accounts are solid. You'll be comfortable." Thank you, Tom, for noticing the irregularities, for caring enough to say something. "That's my job, but Margaret..." He looked at me seriously. "I should have pushed harder earlier. When I first noticed the strange withdrawals, I should have been more aggressive about investigating. I let professional courtesy get in the way. I'm sorry. You helped me when it mattered. That's what counts." Tom closed his laptop. "I'm implementing new policies at my firm for all elderly clients, more aggressive monitoring, more frequent check-ins. If I see anything suspicious, I'm reporting it immediately. No more waiting for the client to ask questions. Your case taught me that sometimes people don't know they need help until it's almost too late. I'm glad something good came from this." He stood to leave, then paused. "Robert was a good man. He'd be proud of how you handled this." I hope so. After Tom left, I walked through the house, really looked at it. The living room where we'd celebrated Christmas, the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, the bedroom where Robert and I had slept side by side for 43 years, and Robert's study. I stood in the doorway, the desk, the chair, the bookshelves. For 5 years, this room had been a shrine, untouched, preserved exactly as he'd left it, but it wasn't a shrine anymore. It was mine. I spent the next week redecorating. I kept Robert's desk. It was solid oak, beautiful, and I'd grown fond of it. But I moved his books to make room for mine, cleared out old files, added new ones, put my teaching certificates on the wall, my favorite photographs. The letter stayed, of course, Robert's letter. I had it professionally framed and hung it beside the desk, a reminder, a protection. A love letter that had lasted 30 years and counting. Carol came over one afternoon with a casserole, her third since I'd moved back. Tuna casserole, chicken casserole, beef stew, all in labeled Pyrex dishes, all made with love. "You don't have to keep feeding me," I said, laughing. "I know, but I like to." She set the dish on the counter, looked around the kitchen. "It's good to have you back. The house felt wrong without you in it." It felt wrong to me, too. Carol was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I found something in myself, watching you fight back. I've been a widow for 8 years, and I've spent those 8 years being careful, not making waves, not standing up when things weren't right, because I didn't want trouble." "That's understandable. But you showed me something. When my daughter told me to stay out of your legal case, I said no. I stood up for you, and it felt good. It felt like I'd found a piece of myself I'd lost when Jim died." I hugged her. "You've always been strong, Carol. You just needed a reason to remember it." "So did you." 2 weeks later, Attorney Susan came by with more paperwork, estate plan updates, living trust documents, a new will that explicitly left the house to Emma, bypassing David and Jennifer entirely. If anything happens to you, Susan explained, Emma inherits the house when she turns 25. Until then, it's held in trust and managed by the law firm. Your children have no claim to it, no way to contest it. It's ironclad. Good. I'm also setting up a college fund for Emma, $50,000 from your savings. She can use it for tuition, books, housing, whatever she needs. It's in her name only, protected. Thank you, Susan, for everything. You're keeping me on retainer, right? For ongoing support? Absolutely. Susan smiled. Good, because I have a feeling you're going to be just fine. But it's nice to know you have backup if you need it. That night, I sat at Robert's desk, my desk now. The study was quiet. The house was quiet. But it was a good quiet, a peaceful quiet. Not the lonely silence I'd felt for 5 years after Robert died. I pulled out a journal, one I'd bought that week specifically for this purpose, and I wrote, "Dear Robert, I found your letter. Took me 30 years and one locked door, but I found it. You knew. Even then. I wish you'd told me directly, but I understand why you didn't. I wouldn't have believed you. David was our son. Jennifer was our daughter. How could I believe they'd see me as something to exploit rather than someone to love? But you protected me anyway. You saw what I couldn't see. You built safeguards I didn't know I needed. You left me everything I required to fight back. The house is safe. I'm safe. You kept your promise. The children... David and I aren't speaking. Maybe we never will. Jennifer is trying. Therapy. Supervised visits. She says she's sorry. I want to believe her, but trust isn't easy after betrayal. We'll see. Time will tell. Emma, though. Emma is back in my life. She comes over every Saturday. We cook together, talk, make plans. She's applying to colleges. She wants to be a teacher, like me. You'd love that. You always said teaching was the most important job in the world. I miss you, every day. But I'm okay now. Better than okay. I'm standing on my own, making my own decisions, setting my own boundaries, protecting myself the way you protected me. You'd be proud, I think. At least I hope so. Thank you for loving me enough to see what I couldn't. Thank you for the letter. Thank you for 43 years of marriage and protection and partnership. I'll always love you, and I'll always be grateful. Love always, Margaret. I closed the journal, placed it in the desk drawer next to the Christmas ornament box where I'd found his letter. 2 letters now. His to me, mine to him. 30 years apart, but connected by the same truth. Love protects, even across time, even beyond death. In March, I planted roses in the front garden, Robert's favorite, yellow roses that would bloom in late spring and smell like hope, like new beginnings, like second chances. In April, I bought a new Christmas ornament, a small house, silver and glass, for next year's tree. A reminder that home isn't just a place, it's something you fight to keep, something worth protecting. Emma helped me hang it on the bookshelf in the study. For December, she said. For December, I agreed. By May, the house felt like mine again. Not Robert's, not the children's. Mine. The study was my workspace. The garden was my project. The kitchen was where I cooked meals for myself and Emma and Carol. The bedroom was where I slept peacefully, knowing the locks were mine and the keys were in my control. I was 68 years old, a widow, a retired teacher, a grandmother, a woman who'd survived loss and betrayal and fought back when everything tried to break her. And I was okay. Not great, not perfect, just okay. And okay was enough. It's June now, 6 months since that Christmas Eve. I'm still in the house. My house. Every morning I wake up in the bedroom Robert and I shared for 43 years. Every morning I make coffee in the kitchen and sit at the table where we had thousands of conversations. Every morning I look out the window at the garden where yellow roses are starting to bloom. The key works. The locks are mine. The house is legally, officially, completely mine. David and I don't speak. The 6-month no-contact period ended last week. He hasn't called. I haven't either. Maybe we never will. Some relationships can't survive what ours went through, and I'm at peace with that. He showed me who he was. I believe him now. Jennifer calls once a week. We talk for 15 minutes. Polite, distant. She's still in therapy, still working on understanding why she let David control her decisions, why she lied to Emma about me. We're not close. We may never be close again, but we're trying. Small steps. Supervised visits once a month. Emma as buffer. It's something. Emma comes over every Thursday after school. We cook dinner together. She tells me about college applications, about field hockey, about the boy she's not dating but talks about constantly. She's 17 now, smart, strong, everything I hoped she'd be. The college fund is set up, $50,000. Her future secured. And when I'm gone, she gets the house. Not David, not Jennifer, Emma, the one who never saw me as something to exploit, the one who just wanted her grandmother back. Carol and I have coffee every Saturday morning at the Main Street Cafe. We talk about gardening and books and the neighborhood gossip. She's dating someone, a widower from her church. I'm happy for her. She deserves companionship, love, second chances. Tom manages my accounts with new safeguards in place. Every month, David's court-ordered payment arrives. $200. It'll take 10 years to repay the $23,000. But every check is a reminder. Actions have consequences. Last month, I started volunteering at the senior center downtown, teaching basic financial literacy, how to spot elder abuse, warning signs, red flags, what to do if your children start asking about your house value, when to call a lawyer, how to protect yourself. I tell them, trust your gut, get professional help, document everything. Don't be afraid to set boundaries, even with family, especially with family. Some of the seniors look at me like I'm being paranoid. Others nod. They understand. They've seen it in their own families. That shift from love to exploitation, from concern to control. I'm helping people, using what happened to me to protect others. Robert would like that. He always said teaching was about more than classrooms. It was about passing on wisdom, helping people survive. People ask me if I'm lonely, living alone at 68 in a big house. And the truth is, sometimes, yes. I miss Robert. I miss the marriage we had, the partnership, the companionship. But lonely is better than violated, better than controlled, better than living in fear that your own children will lock you out of your home and steal your independence. I have friends. I have Emma. I have a house that's mine and a life that's mine and decisions that are mine to make. That's not loneliness, that's freedom. Last week, I hung a photo in the study. Me and Robert on our 50th wedding anniversary. No, wait, we didn't make it to 50. He died at 43 years. But I have the photo from our 40th, 2 years before he died. We're standing in front of this house, gray-haired and wrinkled and smiling, happy. I look at that photo and I think, he loved me enough to protect me, and I love myself enough to accept that protection when I needed it. If you're reading this or listening to this, and something sounds familiar, if your children are suddenly very interested in your finances, if they're suggesting you can't live alone, if they're talking about power of attorney or selling your house for your own good, please pay attention. Get a lawyer. Talk to a financial advisor. Document everything. Don't sign anything without professional review, and don't be afraid to say no, even to your own children. Especially to your own children. You're not paranoid, you're not ungrateful, you're protecting yourself. And that's not selfish, that's survival. I'm standing on my own now, in my house, with my independence, with my boundaries. Some people might call me bitter. David certainly does, based on what Emma tells me. But I'm not bitter. I'm clear. I know what I'm worth. I know what I deserve. And I'm not apologizing for demanding it. Every morning I have coffee in Robert's study, my study now. The letter is framed on the wall, a reminder of love that lasted beyond death, of protection that spanned 30 years, of a man who knew me better than I knew myself. Every morning I remember, he loved me enough to protect me, even after he was gone. Now I love myself enough to stay protected. And you know what? That's enough.